1:38 o'clock.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a nice little special edition here of Paranormal Guyz. We have a lovely guest today who I've been trying to get on here for a while. We've all had a couple scheduling conflicts, but I think you guys will be very interested to hear all about his story. Um, so we will get on with bringing our guest in here and see what he has to share with us. Hello,
Hi.
Sean.
Hi there, Shay. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for being here and happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So I purposefully didn't look into a whole lot of anything because what Glenn had originally told me and what sold me on uh whenever he had first contacted you was that apparently you like run or own a haunted castle slash mansion. So I was told.
That's Glenn's version. It was haunted, but it was actually an arts venue. It wasn't a castle.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm happy to go with whatever you fancy. But it's an
Just
arts
a
venue.
castle art venue.
It was an old building, a very old building,
Mhm.
and I suppose that could be where the confusion comes from.
Mm.
Apart from a bit
So,
of exaggeration.
well, sometimes that's never a bad thing.
Hmm.
So, was it like did you work there or what was the situation behind that?
Well, in 2016, I was running this place here on the
Mhm.
Sussex coast, and like I say, in this old Tudor building. So, the style was Tudor. We don't really know how old it was, but it was
Mhm.
over 100 years old.
Wow.
Um, and in the spring of that year, when we were having some work done to the place, some carpets pulled up and things like that, we started to have a good degree of poltergeist activity, which turned me from skeptic into non-skeptic.
What kind of things were happening?
Um, the first iteration was when our assistant manager was upstairs taking up the carpets, and on instruction from me, as in like how we're going to improve this place that we just got the
Mm.
lease on, right? And so I was just asking him to go and do things, and he'd go upstairs all day long doing his work, pulling up carpets, painting the walls, doing this stuff, and banging started to happen all around the place, not coming from one spot, like bang bang, knock knock,
Mhm.
like this. And it was just very strange and quite quiet at first, but I noticed it from downstairs in the venue, and he
Mhm.
would come down and I'd say, "What is all that banging?" I've got no idea, but it's constant, isn't it? I'm like, "It is," and so that is what went on for some time.
Mhm.
Um, would you like me to continue on this line?
Yeah, no, I'm just like, so were all you guys doing just like pulling up carpets and painting, or was there any major construction going on, or?
We were trying to turn the upstairs parts into an art gallery on the first floor
Mhm.
and the bed and breakfast on the top floor. And I also had a
Oh.
room up there where I stayed. So there were 4 bedrooms on that top floor and a long gallery. And basically, it was a horrible old carpet in there.
Mhm.
Had the lease, so decided to take it all up. But we didn't ask permission of the building. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
I don't know, but something started to go very, very wrong because uh, 6 years late, 8 years later, now it sounds easy to sort of go what it was, and it's much more light-hearted.
Mhm.
But at the time, it was extremely frightening because I was there on my own quite a lot of the time. I was the man of the house, so it was very, very weird.
Well, yeah, I can imagine the amount of time you spend there alone and you're just hearing stuff banging around.
That's
I,
right.
I wonder what the sentimental value of the carpet was.
Exactly. It's just like we're coming in here to turn it around again. And I guess the building itself had been a bunch of different kind of businesses over the years. It's like people couldn't settle. It would go from pizza parlor to restaurant to this to that. It was that kind of a venue, and people would often be curious as to why this changed all the time. That then I come in, some investment partners, um, had agreement from them all to like do what you want with it, and
Mhm.
the idea was to make it into a much more pared down performance space for
Mhm.
art and music. That's what I do, and that was the idea. Um, and it just went very badly wrong in terms of that, and also in terms with the licensing people at the council who were also on us. So we were having it from the supernatural and from the licensing officers at the same time. Supernatural. I'm only saying that because I can't explain it, not because I want to give it a name. You know.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if so I guess so much change so periodically was probably keeping whatever it was very like it just wanted things the way that it was. Did it calm down after so long or
Not really. The place was open for almost a year. They started in the spring in this sort of soft banging way. Then, when we carried on doing the improvements, because I hadn't connected up the two things at that point,
Mhm.
um, there were a couple more things where, when it started to get really alarming, was I was bending down to get a drink for a customer behind the bar, um, and as I was crouched down, like early in the evening, full light, there was a bunch of customers there. It was normal, but a pint glass flew from behind my head into the venue. It was a directional thing. It hadn't fallen. There was force behind it. And we caught it on CCTV, and
Wow.
it was like so. It was good to catch it because there was lots of chat about this on Facebook. So I was able to put it up there to say, no, "This is what's going on." People are like, "Ah."
Oh, like look, I'm not crazy here. It's actually happening.
That's right. That's right. And there was about 6 customers who sort of saw it and said, "Yep, yep, yep. That's what happened." And so that was helpful.
Is that something that you still run or is that a past venture?
It's a past thing, but that in the Christmas of that year, it pretty much went on for 1 year. We weren't very good on the licensing regulations, so there was like a case about that, which was part of having us closed down. But also, it was the town was almost against us. Basically, it wasn't the right spot for it, and there was all sorts of other problems with it. So it was like a business project of a year that was
Mhm.
also very, very it was very, very, very busy and very lively and successful, but
Mhm.
it was absolutely hampered by all these forces, including this one. And it was an extra voice to say you shouldn't be doing this here.
So is that same place something else now?
um, I haven't been back to that town since then. All kind of went wrong. It was like, oh god.
Just get
Um,
out.
yeah, exactly. But I've heard that it's turned into a pizza restaurant or some sort of a restaurant, and it's doing quite nicely. So good luck to them. I don't know if they've had the same experiences as I did, but doubt it.
Well, I guess you got to find something they like.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But something quiet and calm and nice.
So, what kind of like art and music were you into?
Well, the place was the only way of keeping it going was to have something on every night of the week,
Mhm.
because it didn't. It was a cafe during the day, but in the part of town it was that just wasn't very busy. So in the evening, we would attract the arts contingent of the town into the place with punk sometimes, and folk, and some techno even now and again, but very very good stuff. Not the horrible thing. It was a very sophisticated arts venue but on the popular edge. So there was all kinds of things, and I was in charge of publicity, so I do the posters for whatever we've got going on in advance, and that was popular. But the constancy of it, firstly, that was exhausting for me, and I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into. So that was an
Mhm.
education. Because constantly keeping all that up on your own is quite a challenge, and all the other licensing things on your shoulders.
Mhm.
Um, and then compounded by the fact that the place is and was quite spooky feeling. Basically, it was like this old sort of Tudor place, wood everywhere, sort of black and white wood, and um, then after that, we'd started to tear up all these carpets, so it was even more hard. Not that
Yeah.
there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Um, and gradually, there were just event after event, and it wasn't just the beer glass and the knocking. There were other things as well.
So, are you an artist yourself?
I am. I'm a fine artist. I did that for my at university, my masters. If people are watching, then they can see one of my pictures behind me. And I still do lots of things on the art line these days, show and in magazines and things. You've gone.
Yep. Hold on. I
Sorry.
don't know what happened here. Oh, of course, there's got to be something. Thank God we're just recorded. We're not live.
Uh,
Oh, let me see here. It did this to me one time before. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, it's not that. So, what in the world? Well, let me see. Okay, well, I guess we'll just use my regular camera then and not worry about it.
oh, is that different?
Yeah, I have like a nicer quality camera, but we'll just use that for now and not I'll figure out what's going on with it later.
Cool.
But so what particular type of art were you into? Like just the type like the more abstract like you have behind you?
Um, there were some abstracts, but the idea of the place was to attract the interest and the talents of the towns. So we opened it up to people who wanted to show with some objectivity to it. So
Mhm.
that was all over the bottom venue with the music going on too, and eating and drinking as too. And then this exhibition gallery we opened on the first floor was then for specific exhibitions. So of a certain local artist would have his or her thing in there for like a month, and we'd change it over. We
Mhm.
had a bunch of those over that year, and it was good fun doing that. All
Well,
kinds of different art.
I mean too like you specifically, like what all different types of mediums.
Me.
Yeah.
Oh right, yeah. Yes, I tend to do these abstracts like this very big kind of color abstracts, but I've also got a thing about doing the portraits of controversial people in culture. So I've got portraits of Johnny Depp and Christopher Hitchens and Lawrence Fox, people like that, which I just have a compulsion when I see their stories to paint them. So I tend
Huh.
to build up a catalogue this way, and it's just something that I've kept doing into this age. But I've got the abstracts going on as well, so I've got all these different things in my art. I'm a writer too, so I do lots of creative work. Basically, that's my is my fuel.
What kind of writing do you do?
Um, I'm about to publish my ninth book tomorrow, called A Delicate Balance of Reason, which is
Wow. And
sorry,
congratulations on that.
thank you. So not very professional, am I? But
No, you're
I don't know. It's called A Delicate Balance of Reason, Adventures in the Culture Wars. The cover's this picture behind me.
Yeah.
So we're excited to get that out, and it's a extra book on the post woke genre. People say anti woke, but this is more post woke to try
Hmm.
and put identity politics in the past because that's a big theme of mine as well.
Gotcha. What other kind of books have you done?
Um, I've done some contributed to some poetry books, and I've got my own poetry book coming out end of this year or beginning of next. So I'm looking forward to that. The ones before that are mainly cultural theory. So like this one, Adventures in the Culture Wars, they are more abstract and a bit more. This is more of a story about the culture wars. The other ones are a bit more snapshotty, like because I've been a
Hmm.
journalist too. Um, but the one I did last in 2023 was compelling speech, the stammering enigma, because I'm a stammerer too. It comes out from time to time, and since I was 5, and I'm a bit of a specialist on that subject and how some techniques of how to handle it and to. I'm on the board of Stammer, who are I'm not a board member, but I'm like a contributor to their
Hmm.
site, and they're the British Stammering Association. They're a big deal. So I did this book for them, or for myself last year, and that's been my biggest seller so far. So that was nice.
So is that more like a? Would you classify that more under like a self help or just about?
Yeah, well, it's self help would be a way of putting it. It's like an autobiography of a stammer because it's like how it's been to be a stammerer since 1980 and all the techniques and the representations in culture that you see. And because of the progressive movement, it's all been problematized differently. So it's fine to have a disability now, sort of thing. And this book acknowledges that. And it also says, and it's okay to want to get better at the same time, because those two things are
Mhm.
problematic. So it discusses that in a kind and a witty way, because I like to get humor into my work as wherever I can. So it takes these quite serious subjects and applies a good dollop of English humor to it, basically.
No, I do appreciate the English humor. No, I completely know what you mean. I'm a writer myself, and I'll try so hard to be serious on a lot, but then it's like you got to throw that little bit of funny in there just to
Exactly.
make it authentically you.
What's the point otherwise? Absolutely.
Right, exactly. So, you have your master's in fine art.
Hmm. Yeah, I did that in 2003 at the University for the Creative Arts, it's now called here in England. And I was there for 6 years. I did foundation, as we call it, and then the degree itself, and then a master's afterwards. I was doing video art mainly and cultural theory too.
Hmm.
But I did abstract painting in the first year, but dropped it then for years and years until I got back to it around COVID, the lockdown time.
Hmm.
So these things don't leave you; they kind of hibernate and they come out later
Hmm.
on. It's a good thing about being a creative, isn't it? It comes out
Yeah,
when it wants.
yeah. And it's funny. I was telling Kyle the other night. I was like, hold on, I've got to find something to write something down with, because I was coming down the road and I was listening to music, and um like with all my tattoos and everything, I like to pretty much do my own and then let the artist, you know, do it, obviously, but I like to design my own. And I was like, before, because I have such an ADHD brain, I was like, before I forget, I've got to write all this stuff down because this song gave me a tattoo idea. And if I don't write down every little idea that I have now, I was like, of course, I'm in the middle of driving home and the genius idea for the tattoo has to come to me. And then I'm like, oh, I got to figure out how, if this is going to be enough words to fit in this circle. Oh, God, I just,
Ah, if you don't get it down, it will fly, won't it? So
yeah. And with the week that I had, I'm like, nope, this is going to be a great idea, and I've got to get it now before it leaves me, because if it leaves me, I won't remember the best part of it. But
Mm.
no, I've been in been a creative for a long time, and my fiance is actually a comic book artist, so
Mm.
we live in the creative world. I wrote poetry myself for a long time, and in one of that was like my first step into, before I started like really writing. I had this big, really nice leather bound book that my dad had given me, and I just filled it and filled it and filled it with like the back of it. I would print off song lyrics all the time and get my inspiration from that, and just fill the book up with different poems I would work on, like starting through middle school. And I still have that same book in my packed away in my closet.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I recently got back into a little bit more of it, because we have a group of friends um who live because we live in West Virginia, who live up north in the state of us, who have their own comic book studio, and they put out this anthology series of just people who had little tidbits of stories that they wanted to do. And the first story that my fiance and I had wrote together, they put in their first one. So they wanted us to put something in the second one that they did. And he didn't have time to write a whole nother story. And I was like, well, here, I'm going to get them 3 poems. I'm going to give you a brief description of the picture that I want you to put with them. And that's what we'll give them. So I have, I said it's weird where um, how your creative process changes throughout the years. And I found that when I went back into trying to write poetry, it was almost very dark.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't want to give off the impression that I'm this dark person, but it almost seems prettier when it's dark.
Mhm.
And so we in one of the books, it's got like a like one of them was more based around mental illness, so it's got the girl with all the fuzzy crazy thoughts going on, and um the poem that accompanies it, and I had him do a picture specifically for what I wanted for each poem to go with it. So that was a that was a really cool thing to be able to go back into to poetry after so long.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so what got you into journalism?
Well, I think it was about being a musician as a teen into my 20s, and then because I would go to gigs and I get passionate about music, as I'm sure you do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because of that passion I would record my thoughts on it, and actually quickly realize I was better at writing, or enjoyed writing, capturing something in a paragraph, and then
Mm-hmm.
stringing it together into a review. I liked it, and then I did a review of David Bowie's The Next Day album when I was living in Istanbul, and the local Time Out. Um, I sent it to the editor there, and they loved it, and they published it. And I thought, right, if I can be the guy that does brings David Bowie's The Next Day to Turkey, then there might be something in this. So I just continued to do reviews, and I started to write for various indie zines and for the Louder Than War, which is a big magazine here, which I did for a couple of years in the uh, 2010s.
So
So that's
was
the
it
journalist magazine.
basically all like music related?
Yeah, I mean, up until about 2018, it was usually about music, and I still do a little if I get turned on by something. But then I got into culture war type things
Mhm.
with the ramping up of all that in the media. Things went
You
over, and
almost don't you almost don't have a choice but to.
respond to it.
Be put right
Exactly.
there.
The cancel culture stuff is interesting and not entirely wrong, and so it's ambiguous. So there's lots of things to play with as a writer and artist. And I'm not a binary sort of good bad type person, or
Mhm.
so it's like I prefer to explore what's going on, and so that's what this
I
book's all about. And that's what I've been doing
I
since.
I can appreciate that because
Mm.
it's like I get this, but I get that, and it's just I'm just gonna be Switzerland here in the middle, just
Yeah, yeah. There's
taking
not
in
enough
both
people like
sides.
that. That's completely it. And the media and the social media relies on people being right in the outsides talking insanely, and for people like you and me to actually talk this way, there is the podcast revolution, and that's why it's so popular now, because
Hmm.
you actually get normal human sense whether you're from
Hmm.
Britain or America
Hmm.
talking, and that's the but that's not entertained in the mainstream media. So this weird place of where we are in culture.
Well, and it could just be, personally where, like where we stand on that of just being in the middle of like, we can understand their side and their side, but I find it a lot more interesting to listen to the people that are right in the middle that have, you know, like, well, I get this part that they have, but this part I don't agree with, and I enjoy seeing the people right in the middle that are, I guess the word would be sympathetic to both sides
Yeah,
rather than, listening to people argue about it.
yeah, it gets very tiring, doesn't it, and sort of
Yeah, it's
exhausting
like
stuff. And it's been 10 years of this now, and they're confused as to why the TV doesn't have the viewers anymore that it did. That's because they want to go and watch Joe Rogan quietly ask people questions. That's why. Yeah, and
and act like a crazy person sometimes, but
well, indeed,
but
they
it's
all do at
but
some point.
it's but it's a it's it's amusing, and I can just appreciate being that sympathetic to both sides, and I don't understand why they wouldn't think that that's interesting, because I like personally, like for my best friend, we have two different views on things, but it's like I would love to see more of, she can appreciate and see why I look at things the way that I do, and I can appreciate and look at things the way that she does, even though we don't fully agree. But it's like, why can't more people have that conversation of just like, we can agree to disagree, and that's fine. I'm not going to
Mm.
try to convince you or try to get you to change your mind on the way that you look at things, but we're cool. We don't got to fight about it. It's fine.
That's so admirable, and it's so rare. Well done. I don't even have close members of my family. Not that I don't have them, I have them, but that we're much more distant than we were 10 years ago. Because when you start to point out the problems of extreme progressivism or extreme conservatism, one of those two gets angry. And loads of my family are in the progressive camp, and I'm just not that place. I'm in a centrist. I call it centrist, but in Britain, when you get called a centrist, actually they mean far right. So it's so bizarre, and it's so annoying because I believe in biology and science,
Mhm,
but I love art. That's my
mhm,
main thing in life. There's loads of us like that, but no one actually says it anymore because in the media everyone's too craven and they've got loads of bosses and things. Great thing
mhm,
about podcast world, it's not about bosses, it's about telling the truth. It's great.
mhm. And just, it's another form of expression too, of just, two people from
Different continents.
different continents, just, like, we're just here to have a good time.
Mhm. Exactly.
We're just like, it's just the hate and the anger and all that just gets so tiring, and I'm like, this, y'all need a hug, because
Well,
Everyone needs to take a chill pill.
I agree. The thing about culture, though, is that it's going to come around to these kind of things. And once we've
Mhm,
had a bunch of that, people will get bored of it and they'll go to something else. It's just the MSM are, mainstream media, I'm sure, but,
mhm,
are so paranoid because the financial model is breaking. In Britain, it's massively breaking. They'll never admit that. And as far as I'm aware, it's breaking in America too. So,
mhm.
when Tucker
And
Carlson
again, they'll
does his
never
own thing,
admit that.
yeah, because they're like, oh my God, no. And but to tell the truth about that stuff is a threat to their mortgages. So you get
Mhm.
why they're not going to tell the truth, but that's not good enough for an artist, is it? Because we're not here protecting our mortgages. We're here just telling the truth, and that's what you're not allowed to do there. Um, and
And
let
just,
alone getting onto identity politics stuff, which is even more problematic.
well, we're just trying to have a good time, enjoy ourselves, have that
Mm.
nice little dose of serotonin, and, have a good time. But of course, everybody getting along doesn't bring in the views that the the hate and anger does.
That's it. That's true. We can try though with certain little angles of stuff, which they can clip
Yeah.
and then go. Did you hear what Sean said? No, I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't say that.
Yeah. They'll they'll manage to take it somehow. But
Mm.
no, I can really appreciate that there are more people out there like that, of just, like I said, I'm just Switzerland. I'm just here to do
Yeah.
me. But I'm interested in I'm very interested in your music side of things. What kind of music do you like?
Mm. Well, I like everything we're in Spotify world, and I love that. Well done,
Hmm.
Daniel Eck. And so it's great that you can have your own playlist, and that I
Hmm.
come from the past of the vinyl albums and cassettes and everything else that we
Hmm.
love, but I've actually got used over the last 15 years to the wonder of unlimited music, because you don't
Hmm.
have to listen to all of the 15 million songs. You have your own, and it's like once you realize that, you can chill out a bit.
And it's
And
even funny, me at 28. I'm 28. It took me till the last 5 years before I could be like, okay, I don't have to have all of my music saved on my phone. I have YouTube,
right.
I have Spotify. I can just look it up whenever I want. I don't have to have it all saved here.
Well, we get used to everything, don't we? And one of the really interesting things about that is that we've gone to accepting it, like you mentioned, from the business model before of owning the thing of the artist. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I've also realised how much of a massive marketing exercise the last 50 years of rock and roll have been. And like, right, okay, now I see. Now it's still that. It's just in a slightly different way when no one owns anything, and well, we never actually did in the first place. So,
Yeah.
but if you have an actual record that you actually loved, the thing itself, that is a work of art, and it can be on your wall as much as anything else, and it should be, because loads is invested in that, and that's a beautiful thing. And and that's, even if there were 80 million copies of Michael Jackson's Thriller Soul, which is the figure we always come up with,
Hmm.
your copy of that you loved on the wall is a work of art. I really
Hmm.
like that about music. Answer to your question, it's not Michael Jackson that I'm mad on, but I'm into art rock. I love Motown, uh, but it really is mixed. I love classical and hip hop as well. So special artists I'm into, the Flaming Lips, David Bowie, Holst, things like this. That's my kind of fairly colourful stuff, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I again very much know what you mean on that. I'm very partial to like 80s rock, because that's what I grew up listening to. But when you were mentioning like that, your favorite album up there is your piece of art. I My favorite band is Shinedown, and I've physically bought all of their albums except for their latest one. And I think the most sacred thing I own is I was able to meet them once and brought the insert from their CD, Amaryllis, and was able to get them all to sign it. And if I could just, I'd just put that right up on the wall, because it was Best day of my life.
Oh, wow.
The
I've
best human beings.
I've not heard of this band, so I'm going to have to get on Spotify later on and find out all about Shinedown for you. Sorry, they obviously don't have much of a profile in Britain, so I'll have a look later on.
Well, no, it's funny. I was just reading. I only read part of it last night, but I went over and saved it so that I could look at it and share it. Um, they have their latest CD is Planet Zero, and it was honestly something that was kind of hard for me to accept about them because of the Shinedown that I started listening to was very heavy rock, headbanging music, and then you just see the gradual progression of what they got into. They started doing it with their last album, Attention, Attention, but this album, I put it on YouTube on my TV and listened to it, and every other song is uh, it's like a voiceover of like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like it's a robot lady's voice
Hmm.
taking you through each step of almost like this a post-apocalyptic robotic society, and how much work that they put into this. Because I was like, I don't want to listen to this new album. The last one was so great, and then I broke down and listened to it, and it was such a work of art how they put in between all these songs. They made such a storyline just out of these little voice clips.
Hmm. It
And
sounds great.
they started doing it with their last album, where basically all their music videos, whenever you played them all together, played out a story. And they were working on making it like its own little movie per se. But if I recommend anyone to listen to, from their new album Planet Zero, is The Symptom of Being Human, and
Okay.
that for I would say for people like us, it's something that hits home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very emotional person. With we've all got our issues, but the first time that it played and I listened to all those lyrics, I cried like a baby.
Right. Wow.
I was just like, oh, it's hitting me deep in the soul. Like they just wrote that song for me. And it's such a great song. And if you ever check, if you're on TikTok or anything, if you look at their TikTok, their lead singer Brent Smith is such a just normal person. Just like I have a lot of appreciation for a band not only that sounds good, that I like, but they're good people. And they're just like another person, and they are very
Hmm.
much that. But just the progression from, I think their very first album was Us and Them. I could be wrong, but to now is there's such a stark contrast. Granted, in like those first two albums, Brent was on drugs really bad, so there's a lot of difference between then and now,
Hmm.
but just a beautiful work of art that their career is.
Wow. I think you should work for them.
Oh, I would, but I'd just be like the
All
whole
right.
time. But it's there. I mean, it's whenever you have such a like they are a band that I say I found in the time when I needed something like that most. So they are like piece of my heart. Like I have their part of their lyrics tattooed on my arm here from my first
Oh,
tattoo. Um, the first step is the one you believe in. The second one might be profound, which was from their Amaryllis album of the song "I'll Follow You," and it's like I don't like to say it's so like so serious or so deep, but it's just when when you find that band or that singer that just really speaks to your soul.
Yeah.
Like I hold on to them like they are my children. Like don't you talk bad about them. Don't you do nothing. That's my baby.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually. That part of it. I mean, I've probably got the same sort of relationship with David Bowie, but it was interesting to watch online how people responded to the Depp Heard case in that way. I've written about this quite a bit. That
Hmm.
people, people do hold their heroes to their hearts, and
Hmm.
how Johnny, particularly being the older, he's got a much longer history than Amber. So what
Hmm.
was going on there was that his people associated everything about him with a thing to protect. And how dare you, beautiful woman, get married to my love, and then all this go off, and then they blame her for everything, and we see a toxic relationship
Hmm.
in the court, and then they think they're having a personal go at them. So what
Hmm.
happened between them actually destroyed the gender wars, and we saw that their affiliation with a man was more important than their um, feelings that they might have had in other issues about men and women. But because
Hmm.
he's the guy, they just went with their guy, and we all saw what happened anyway. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting in terms of the fan worship, is what I mean.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that because I didn't watch it like day by day, but Facebook would give me like hour-long clips of that day's proceedings, and that was crazy. Just
Yeah.
the lengths that she went to and the stuff that he went through was just nutty.
It was interesting to watch the entire sort of story of a domestic violence story in front of you, isn't it? And I think that's what
Well,
that was the
and
education of the world.
in um that type of power dynamic too, because how often are you seeing male domestic violence cases put out there like that?
Well, exactly. It's the men's rights points, as they do. So, without wanting to comment on whatever anybody knows, because I've no idea who's watching this, and I wouldn't want to upset any of them. But it's a very, very interesting thing for a cultural theorist to see
Hmm.
what's going on with these
Yeah.
dynamics, as you say.
And I think too with how ready so many of her coworkers and friends per se were ready to just immediately jump to her side before figuring out what actually happened.
Indeed, that's the interesting part about your Switzerland stance, and mine
Mhm.
is that you weren't allowed. You had to choose your gorgeous Hollywood star. Which one are you going to go for? And
Mhm.
often the girls under 30 will go that way towards Amber, and the guys and lots of girls over 40 go towards Johnny. And those kind of societal. And that's what this thing was actually all about, And
Mhm.
but that part of protecting your guy, it was
Mhm.
interesting how that can stretch off the TV screen and into people's lives,
Mhm.
and then they start to tear each other to bits for years and years on X. It's like
Mhm.
it still goes on now, and it makes me go, he's trying to get on with his
Nothing
life.
else to do.
Well, I wonder. Who knows? It's a job for many, of course. There's that too, which shouldn't be forgotten.
No, and I know personally for being I I feel like the last several years have definitely shown us that Even those people that you think aren't going to do that will definitely do that. So I was coming into the whole thing like, God, I love Johnny Depp. Please don't let this be. Please don't let this. But the past couple years, I think have shown us, of course there'll be people out there that disagree, but if that's the type of person that they're going to be with things, then you got to let them be that. And it
Mm.
would honestly, as much as like I hold Shine Down near and dear to my heart, if I found out that they were a bunch of a-holes and were doing crappy stuff, it would be like, nope, nope, sorry, you're not getting any more of my support.
Mm.
But I feel that way strongly, like with Lizzo, because when Lizzo came out, I was like, oh, this is great. We're supporting the big girls, and the music's catchy, the music's great, and then she's got to be saying and doing crazy stuff, and I was like, yeah, I can't. As much as I would play her stuff on repeat again and again and again, I was just like, I can't.
That's quite interesting, and I didn't know that Shishi was big in America. Is she American, by the way? Sorry, I don't.
Yes.
No, okay, right, cool. I don't know much about her except for what she looks like,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that she's a great performer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the thing is about if I discovered that Shinedown were a bunch of a-holes, I would not support them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Is that everybody's capable of everything,
Mm-hmm.
being good and bad. Kevin Spacey's out right now is out there doing this brilliant fight back against the media for things unproven. And when he says, "I used to be uh, too much out there, too persistent," all these kinds of red lines that everyone else says, and well, he says, "Well, I was those things. Sorry." And we all saw Mr. Johnny Depp slamming those doors in the house because he'd lost his temper. They're all
Mm-hmm.
capable of this bad stuff. If a guy from Shinedown had been um, found guilty of um, I don't know, hitting his wife or something like that. I'm not going to minimize anything, but we'd want to know the entire context of what
Mm-hmm.
type of hit, why, how, did she hit him back? Did she hit him first?
Yeah.
All these kind of things have been opened up, but we all kind of go onto it. With
Mm-hmm.
Lizzo, the stories that I saw, snippets of stories, is what I saw was an ambitious woman who put her ambition in front of her care for those around her. And I'm sure that happens all the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much of a feel for her except for that. Um,
Well, it
but
was
yeah,
just the big, the body positivity of putting herself as a big girl out there, and just doing her thing regardless of what you know critics, media, whoever thought. That's very empowering, as a woman and as a bigger woman. And then for everything that you're portraying out there to just be, you're being completely uh the word isn't coming to me at the moment. um you're doing the exact opposite behind closed doors,
mm,
and everything that you're putting out there to everybody is just total crap. When the door's closed, you're treating your plus size dancers terribly, making them do completely inappropriate things, and you're body shaming them. Then that's just like your whole image of everything that you've put out there is a lie.
yeah. The one thing there that I totally agree with you is on if she's doing the body shaming, that is ridiculous. And I couldn't agree more. It's but if she's a big girl being a bad person, well, that's no problem at all because being a good or bad person has nothing to do with being big. Lots of big people are awful, you know, and lots of thin people are. So it's like people, if a person goes out with a certain representation, Puff Daddy is right now in, oh dear me, in the big time press, and let's not even go there right now.
Yeah.
But it's like because he's black. OJ Simpson just died recently, didn't he? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like I forgot with that story about how much about black and white that it was. And lots of people in the black community says, we know he's guilty, but we don't care because he's black and we got off. That's more important. Like, no, it's not. The due process is more important.
Well,
So
that
with
and
yourself,
that sounds very similar to everything going on with R. Kelly as well.
right, yeah, yeah. That's that's a tricky area with the
Yeah.
false allegations world, which I also write for, is that there's lots of people protesting his innocence or relative innocence because things are so easily exaggerated now, as we're
Mm-hmm.
hinting towards, isn't it? And so, how much of that exaggeration? And it's almost like, how to put this delicately, but I'm sure it's the same for both our countries. Things within the black world, the black diaspora, operate slightly differently from things in the white one, or I can see it very differently in terms of um, acceptability, being, there's loads of homophobia, or the fact that they just don't even acknowledge it generally, and it's a kind of they never go there. They never go with these intersectionalities. And I know it's unusual for two white people to be talking about it, so I won't go on about it too long. But these cultures are different in how they treat things, and that needs to be talked
Mm-hmm.
about more in the media too. After the Black Lives Matter was exposed as people buying mansions all over the place, you're just like, oh, good, just to even scratch the surface of that one, by the way.
Yeah, I don't. Again, Switzerland.
Particularly for that stuff in your country, I know it's incredibly delicate there. I know it is.
Mhm. Well, I would imagine it's probably equally as delicate there as well. It's or maybe people aren't as touchy.
Um, Britain is 85% white and 15% minorities, and in those 15%, 5% are black. Um, the rest are mainly Asian. Those are the stark practicalities of our stuff. The culture war right now is much more with Islamic issues because of what's going on. It's been going on for years, and that is where all of the laser focus is on the rights and wrongs. From time to time, the black thing comes up with stop and search, because the problem is that crime, especially knife crime, is much more common in the black communities. So they get stopped and searched, and the Conservative government wants to push that more because that's where the crime is. But the black community goes, why are they picking on us? Well, it's because they want to. That's what the stats are indicating. So that debate keeps going all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to get that knife crime down, and these people tend to live in the middle of the big cities, so they get lots of the media attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's slightly different from the American experience, where you have the melting pot, which is how it was designed, right? And we don't really have that. We have a white indigenous population who are trying to do the best with multiculturalism, and we're failing big time right now. And who knows how that will change, or who knows.
Yeah. I didn't realize that the percentage was that different over there.
That's it. And that's what the media is not going to tell you, but we can. So there you are.
um, I've got to ask because it's something that I've been watching on Reddit like crazy, and I ask because with you being from over there, um, what are your opinions on everything going on with the royal family right now?
Oh, which part exactly? You can Harry and Meghan, or?
Uh, well, I had done a good bit of look on Reddit because I the conspiracy area of Reddit kept coming up with where Kate Middleton hadn't been seen since like October of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and then now apparently they're uh I believe the last thing I read was that like where I think was it Harry was in the Air National Guard or something, and they ended up giving the award to William instead of him because he's not part of everything now.
Right. Okay. That's essentially the information I've got as well.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it's okay. I come uh, from a leftist place of not being interested at all in the royal family, to the last sort of 10 years where I definitely understand the value more. And as I know the history of the whole thing, I see it in a historical context. I believe in people being good enough for the job and not the hereditary bloodline. However,
Mhm.
The royal family exists and it has its value. And I've grown up with Harry and Wills, of course, and Charles.
Mhm.
So I kind of like sort of Charles on a human level, and then there's the Diana stuff. And then what's fascinating with Harry and William is their two sibling thing. You know, you've got the responsible older William being, and you've got
Mhm.
Harry going off and saying, "You lot, I'm going to go off to America with my gorgeous American wife, who's apparently half black, but she doesn't look it." You know, that's the kind of thing. That's the relationship that Britain has with them. Um,
Mhm.
the royalists have really gone for Harry and Meghan in a way that I wasn't expecting, because I
Mhm.
watch these things like Switzerland. This is our term for today. I love it. I watch
Yep.
them like Switzerland, but the country won't allow that. And lots of
Mhm.
people that I follow are much more hardcore royalists than I am. So I come in on X and I just go very mellow on it all. Kate apparently does have cancer, so we have to go with that. Okay, as does Charles. They had this at the same time, so that's outside of the conspiracy realm. You don't. There's no point in doubting that people have cancer. Either they, you know,
Well,
hope
at
they
the
get rid
time that I was looking it up, it hadn't been announced yet. So I was like,
of.
wait, what do you mean? What do you mean she hasn't been seen since October of last year? And they pulled the kids out of school? What? Where is she?
Well, I
And
know
then I
that.
had then I had to update like a month later of like, well, okay, she hasn't been seen because she has cancer.
I know. It's the way of it's the public shaming of of everybody, isn't it? Say, oh, look, she's got cancer. You can't talk about that. No, well, we're only speculating. I'm interested in the spec. I tell you what, I'm most interested in, Jai, is how interested America is in all this stuff. I know that half America thinks it's all bullshit, and they're quite right, but the other half really loves them, don't they? And that's fascinating. I don't know where any of that comes from. I'm glad they do, because it's only little old England, but I suppose it's the old country, isn't it? So I don't know.
I I don't even remember where I started really getting into things. I think it was more around the time when everything popped off of Harry being like, I'm going to America, not dealing with all you guys. We're just gonna go do our own thing. And then once once the Oprah interview came out, um, because I don't really understand what and I don't know that. I mean, I'm sure there are people here that do, but I don't really understand, I guess, the gravity of stepping down from your royal duties. What
Indeed, I didn't
that
either.
I don't I really understand what, like, why is that such a bad thing that he just
Mm.
wants to go be with his wife and do their thing? I d- I don't understand the dynamic of what that means in the royal family.
I agree with you, but what the language they talk is duty. So it's the same with Edward the Eighth or whatever it was back in Edward and Mrs. Simpson. You know, he went off with the American woman he loved to some Caribbean island. So, oh, how dare you? And I'm like, well, you just take choice, you know. But that's the hippie in me. But
Mhm.
the royals, or the supporters of the royals, not the royals themselves, they're a bunch of hippies, but the supporters of the royals are like, no, it's duty and that's it. And if you don't, you're somehow interfering with the bloodline. Um, what I find problematic, and the point that I went about Meghan, was that stuff. If a person asks you, if you're in a mixed race relationship, and someone asks you, family or not, I wonder what color the baby's going to be. I don't think that's a rude question. But the critical race theorists have come in and said that's racist. And basically, I don't think it is. And if they tell me it is, then I'll say, well, I don't think it is. And I think you're shit stirring, as we say. And the problem with critical race theory and DEI is that it's being exposed as basically anti-Western, anti-white, obviously, and anti everything that we've tried to build up as the liberal democracies. That's being exposed in the academies at the moment. I watch all that stuff, and it was clear that Meghan has internalized all this critical race theory. Not that all of it's wrong, some of it's right, but right now, doing that from her position is going to attract. You're trying to bring the war to the top, and you'll get lots of people saying, "Well, you fuck off then, oh my god, sorry, I don't, so perhaps you'd like to bleep that out, but that's kind of the feeling that was engendered in Britain at that time.
Well, we've got to take a quick break, but we will be right back.
When you get the notification, Para or Normal Guyz YouTube is live.
And we're back. But
Hello.
no, like I get what you mean. Like, I mean, again, Switzerland, and I can't speak to how being asked that made her feel, but I think a lot of that would depend on how they asked. But I can't imagine that it was terribly rude. I mean, if they were just wondering, but I guess that would depend on how they had acted with her when she came into the picture. I don't know. I don't know with all that. But I just didn't understand what the big deal was with. I mean, granted, I don't know what comes in with the royal duties, but I was like, okay, the dude got married. He wants to go live with his wife, and have kids, and do their thing. Can he not do his royal duties from America?
You think so, wouldn't you? We could continue the special relationship that way. I think he's being punished more. I mean, his first sin is to be taking on the entire media establishment because of what he says they did to his mum. So he's got a court case against every single British newspaper right now. So clearly, that's it's unwise because in a sense, I'm like good for him because I'm up for the fighter. But at the same time, he doesn't seem to realize that he's going with Team World, which is the expression. Britain's quite good at. We had the Brexit thing, and we said no, thank you, EU. Off we go. We're doing our own thing, and with the international blob, Tony Blair, who did our country for 15 years, is very much in that team blob, and we're very, very. Donald Trump obviously fights against this all the time, and we increasingly have more and more sympathy with people like that. And it's not only Donald; there's people all over the world and bits and bobs striving for independence. Mm-hmm. Harry doesn't realize that he's on the side of the blob. He's not on the side of the independent, and so, but he thinks he's like doing the right thing and stuff. It's only because he's hurt by the press intruding on what he sees as his life. And he's ginger, and those people are always much more angry forever about everything. So you put those two things together, and you've got Harry in front of you. But we think that Meghan is like a Trojan horse into trying to destroy the royal family from the inside. That's a secret language they're trying to put out. And is she? It's not going very well if she was. She's obviously gone back to America. So.
Well, and they're just like, all right, well, you guys go do your thing. We'll do our thing. So.
There's a suspicion that he's probably going to come back after it's all gone wrong, and she accuses him of something and gets like millions of quid off him. And he'll say, "Sorry, can I come back?" And everyone's be like, "No, okay." So that's the reality of the media is there, but he's a tough SOB. So let's see what that. I'm looking forward to his Prince Henry VIII, his Henry VIII phase, where he comes back as a massive sort of crowned, sunburned madman, and comes back to Britain that way, and then see what he starts to do. At the moment, he's all a bit sort of, woke is the word. I'm looking forward to the post-woke Harry. Let's see what that turns into.
He'll just come back trying to storm the gates, looking like a madman or something, and
make a change, wouldn't it? Get the old style back into 21st century Britain. It would be exciting on the front page of the Sun.
But yeah, I just I I just don't get it. And I don't understand what's so important about it, but I mean, I guess a lot could be said for the same thing here. But I can only relate the two as like presidential family, royal family. That's the only two things that I have to like that I can compare it to, and I wouldn't imagine that we would look at it so harshly.
Mm.
But I
Mm.
could be wrong. And they just seem like they're being pretty harsh about it.
They're being particularly harsh about it on the two fronts of him having the audacity to take the papers to court en masse. That's probably the first time that's happened, and they're saying, no, we haven't told any lies, and we're allowed our freedom of expression. And the Meghan being like a Trojan horse in, they're also using that as a way to have a chip as well. The thing about getting older is that you start to real. I mean, I come from the same point as you of like, why do these systems exist in this weird way? It's possibly because of not being brought up inside it. The more you look at it and the more you comment, the good thing is if you come from the outside, you can keep all that outside feeling, but also understand what they're doing and why.
Mhm.
And when it comes back to the depth thing about like, how dare you attack mine? If you have been into Harry since he was born and you consider him yours, then they're going to have the same thing with Harry that some people have with Depp, or that you have with Slide Down, Smile Down, Shine Down. Sorry. So all those things about the thing that you care about. It's the thing that will be exploited and the thing that you will die for. And the press knows that. The press is this amoral. I mean, I hate and love the press, and I'm an ex-journalist, so it's like I know I've been on the other end of them. I know exactly how they work, and it's not good or bad. They just anything that's interesting. That's the only thing that matters. Once you get your head around that, you're much more fireproof. And Harry doesn't seem to have got his head around that. He wants to be seen as a decent man. Kevin Spacey's coming out right now saying, I want to be seen as a man of good character. I mean, you're an actor. Actors aren't supposed to be of good character. You're supposed to inhabit other characters. It doesn't matter what kind of a person you are. Johnny too. You just act. You don't have to pretend to be some wonderful human being. And everybody's complicated. That's the kind of humanity I want to get back to. Everyone's complicated.
Yeah, we're just people.
Yeah.
People make mistakes. People do stupid stuff. It's life.
That's right. That's right. And that's the good thing about kind of Christianity, which I don't massively. It's another system, right, which exists out there. But cultural Christianity comes out, and forgiveness is really, really important inside that. And the older you get, the more you realize why. Because otherwise, we're all the eye for an eye stuff. We're all dead. So you've got to go past that in your life into other things.
Yep. And I feel like that's probably a good note to end things on, with a positive, I completely lost my train of thought. That ADHD kicked in. But just on a positive note, we're human. We make mistakes. We're all going to die in the end. Learn to forgive people.
That's right. And then those people that die then kind of turn up in an arts venue a few years later and get angry about the work being done. And there you are.
Just make sure it's good carpet.
Absolutely, yes. We'll see what happens.
And on a funny note of something I went over last night, and if you plan to be reincarnated, don't do it in China without someone's consent, because that's illegal.
Really? Wow. Taking consent laws to new places.
Our Misfit show last night, banned in the USA. I was going over weird things that were banned, and that was one of the. China has some weird banned things, and it was reincarnation without consent. So don't do it.
So they've got TikTok, but you can't go and burn someone without asking them. See, what can you do with China?
Yeah. Just at the end of the day, be a good person, because we're all going to die.
Try our best, don't we?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Sean. It's been a great conversation, and I
You too.
appreciate having
Absolute
it.
delight. I'm going to go and check out Shinedown now. So well done on that.
All right. Well, let me know what you think then.
Will do.
Now, is there anywhere that people can find you if they want to keep up with what you're doing?
Yes. If they want the news, come to my X platform because at my name here, Sean B. W. Parker. They can keep up with all the stuff there. If they go to Amazon, they can pick up a copy of A Delicate Balance of Reason, which is an extended 250-page version of our hour-long chat here. Basically, it's a pretty good way of putting it. We've really covered loads of the points in this book here.
Yeah, I will definitely have to be checking that one out.
Great.
All right. Well, make sure you keep in touch, Sean. I had a great time talking to you, and hopefully we can have you back on sometime.
Love to. Be great.
Hey, thank you so much. All right, and thank you, everybody. We are out of here for today. I hope you enjoyed all that.